Thank you all for joining us today. I'm Alexander Forbes, and I lead ARTSY's network of over 3,000 galleries and art fairs globally. ARTSY is the world's leading online marketplace for buying and selling fine art. We work with 2.5 million art collectors and art enthusiasts to help them browse for works online and purchase them with our partner galleries. And we're proud to partner with Asia Now this year and many of its partner galleries, as well as both of these wonderful people who are here with me today from Over the Influence and Gallery Kornfeld. I will briefly introduce my fellow panelists, and then we'll be presenting some key findings from our recent Art Collector Insights report. Sylviane Huang is the director of Over the Influence Gallery in Paris. The gallery was founded in Hong Kong in 2015 and expanded to Los Angeles in 2018, Bangkok in 2021, and Paris in 2022. So congrats on all the growth. And I know Sylviane was involved in both the Bangkok and Paris expansion, so excited to hear more about the different collectors that you've encountered in different parts of the world. The gallery represents an international roster of emerging and established artists who explore the intersections of contemporary art, architecture, design, music, fashion, and other forms of visual expression. Freddy Kornfeld is the founder of Gallery Kornfeld in Berlin. The gallery brings together his long-standing passion for contemporary art with a professional background in business and commerce. Freddy started out as a collector of classical modern art, buying his first engraving by Max Beckmann 33 years ago, and was later introduced to contemporary art by his former partner with whom he co-founded the gallery, and who's still involved today and based in London. The gallery opened an additional location 68 projects in 2014, which provides more space for new artistic collaborations as well as a residency program. So thank you both for joining me.
Thank you very much.
So this year's Art Collector Insights report compiled responses from over 1,200 of ARTSY's collectors in 60 countries. Today I'll present the 6 key findings, and then I think we'll use that as a jumping off point for the discussion. So first up, we looked at what drives art purchases. Collectors continue to primarily buy based on their passion for art and to build a collection, but investing is a growing trend as well. 64% and 62% of collectors respectively told us that they purchase works to build a collection or decorate their home and space. A little bit more than half of that number, that share, said they purchased to as an investment, or with some sort of growth logic behind what they are purchasing. The interesting thing there is that it's been a growing trend. So compared to last year, 19% more collectors said they're buying for investment purchases in our survey this year. Painting remains the most popular medium for collectors, perhaps unsurprisingly. 94% of the folks that we surveyed said that they primarily collect painting, compared to just 56% of folks who purchase prints and multiples. Within the painting realm, despite the recent fervor for figurative works, 50% of collectors said that they favor abstraction as the most important kind of mode within their collecting, while relatively lower, 34% favored expressive figurative works. Perhaps the most talked about topic of the past few weeks or several months at auctions and fairs has been the impact of the macroeconomic environment on the art market. I know talking with galleries in both London and Paris the past couple weeks, there's been a sense that collectors are maybe moving more slowly, or at least taking longer perhaps to pay their bills than they were a year ago today. But it was interesting when we surveyed our collectors this year that by and large their purchasing has remained stable. So 75% of respondents said they purchased around the same amount of works or more in the last year compared to 2022. We also found that there was a marginal increase in the price point or average price point of works that they were purchasing, which runs a little counter to what we've seen in past economic downturns, where people might continue buying, but at a lower price point. I don't know, collectors have a bit of an art addiction, I think, and they want to keep buying even when the pockets are less full. Also interesting, 67% of the collectors that we surveyed who were most active, so folks who are buying 10 works or more per year, said that was double or more the amount that they had purchased in the past year. I will caveat that the survey was carried out in August or September of this year, and so it does capture portions of the year where the market was stronger overall. But nonetheless, you know, it's I guess a heartwarming sign that people remain engaged and remain interested in buying even when things aren't so frothy in the market. Coming out of the pandemic, there was a lot of speculation among art world traditionalists in particular that the great swing towards online that we saw in 2020, 2021, when the physical art world was closed, would shift all the way back to offline, and that people would go back to just spending at physical exhibitions and art fairs. But we found that online collecting has actually remained stable and in fact grown. So when we surveyed our collectors, 80% of them said they had purchased a work online in the past 12 months. That was a 4-point increase from 2022. So not only have people returned to the fairs, I think you could barely walk around some of the halls in the past couple of weeks because it was just so crowded, and it's wonderful to see people back out in that physical world. But they are still engaging online. About half of the respondents said that they browse works online weekly, and 52% of collectors said they spend more than half of their budget online today. So perhaps people are traveling less or being more selective in the fairs that they go to, but they're staying engaged with the galleries and artists that they are obsessed with in the online realm in between. With that trend, though, comes different expectations that buyers have when they're transacting online compared to when they're transacting offline. In particular, having the price of the work available when they are browsing and having as much information as possible is really key to driving transactions online. We hear from our collectors that those are the two main things that when they see a work on ARTSY or on a gallery's website that might prevent them from reaching out, as opposed to maybe at a fair where, you know, it's not typically the case that prices are posted right on the wall, and you might engage in a conversation because you're walking around. Our data has consistently shown that a similar work uploaded to ARTSY with its price public is 5 times more likely to sell than one where the price is not available. And kind of another major factor in this online collecting journey, however, is the kind of security of payments and ways that folks can gain more trust when transacting with galleries who they aren't familiar with. So for example, on ARTSY, we offer a guarantee for buyers up to $100,000 when they're transacting on platform. We also have robust protections for our gallery partners because we're connecting people, I think, on an average distance of 3,000 miles, and not everybody might get to meet these two wonderful people in person, and it's good to feel secure when you're engaging with a new gallery. Also, I think we've seen a rise particularly over the pandemic, in ways in which phishing attacks and other kinds of fraud have grown and targeted the art world. And so collectors have become very aware of that as well, and are more comfortable buying when they can use their credit card or other secure forms of payment like bank transfer, ACH, SEPA, et cetera, which we offer, to make sure that, you know, the money is actually going to the gallery that they intended to purchase the work from, and ultimately going to the artist. Last but not least, we looked at how young collectors' habits may differ from the older generations. A few interesting insights here. 86% of Gen Z and millennial collectors said they purchased the same or more art last year compared to 74% overall. So they're buying more. That's great for the market. That's the next generation. They're set to inherit, I don't know, $60 trillion of wealth over the next couple of decades. So glad to see that they're engaging en masse. They're also more likely to use social media to discover artists. So double the share of younger collectors compared to older collectors use things like Instagram and other social media channels to find the works that they go on to collect. Also, they use mobile more frequently. So 46% of younger collectors compared to 25% of older collectors have purchased a work using their mobile phone. I think that's, we have a robust app that allows people to do that. For galleries, it's been, engaging with marketplaces like ours, making sure they have a mobile optimized website, making sure you're kind of on the go, so somebody, if they're, I don't know, in the back of an Uber or something, can still purchase a painting with relative ease. And they were also marginally more likely to purchase art as an investment. It was only a few percentage point increase, and that could be just due to people being earlier in their earning journey as well, and wanting to know, hey, if I bought something today at the fair and 5 years down the line my taste has changed, or I don't know, need to redeploy the funds in another way, I can get out of the work without a complete loss. So those were the key insights from the report. I'd love to dig in with both of you on some of those themes. And I guess maybe we can just start out by getting a little bit of insight from both of you on the kinds of collectors that you're meeting today, and similar to whatever might have resonated in the report, how their expectations may differ across those different demographics, whether that's region, age range, online, offline, et cetera. Maybe Sylviane, we can start.
I can start. Hi everyone, thank you for being here today. So about my collector, the gallery started in Hong Kong, so we have mainly a base of Asian collectors starting to work with the gallery. It is true now because we expand in Bangkok and Paris, and we have the space in LA. We have a lot of established collectors in the US and in Asia. In Europe, the market is much more difficult for us because the collectors they need to wait longer to understand the artist, and most of the artists of the gallery, they are emerging artists or more established, but in the US or in Asia. So the collectors now, they are kind of, this year was very particularly difficult for us because you always focus on artists you already know, but the one you don't really know and you never saw on a fair, you prefer to wait to see it in person, or you prefer to have someone recommend you an artist before buying it online. So that's a bit the trend now for us. We have to educate much more collectors for younger artists, new artists, because most of them, they will keep the trend in a few artists they already know and they like to collect, and it's true, like the bigger collector, they like to buy 1 or 2 or 3 of the same artists because they were happy to have one of the work, and they feel safe having the same one, That's a bit the idea this year.
And do you think people are then kind of glomming onto those trends? They're not as willing to, like, I guess, chart their own path in their collecting and follow their own taste? It's a little bit more like following what other friends say is good.
Yeah, it's a bit this way. It's like when all your friends is collecting this artist, you feel like, oh, maybe I like it too, and it's kind of following the trend. It's true, yeah, but it's true with all the, even if like everyone have their own taste in art and others, usually it's because someone told you about it that you trust, that you will consider it. But as a gallery, usually like all the collectors, they know one of the collectors of the gallery before buying from you. So it's happened a lot this way, that we have collectors that are recommended by others, and then they can trust us to share like the programming of the artists we have.
Yeah, I guess it's maybe like the good and the bad side of digital, where we have so much more access to so many more artists, and then there's also like the memification of art, where people just go towards the one thing.
Yeah, and especially in France, it's true. Like we have a lot of galleries, and a lot of galleries are here for 1,000 years. So you have galleries that you know since ever, and you always go back. And the one that just arrived, you have to know someone that already bought there and had a good experience before starting to work with them. Yeah.
Freddy, I'm curious for your experience.
Yeah, for me, it would be thank you very much for giving the report here and as a presentation. For me, even, there's one topic geographically. Do you have any state, even, like how you see the business on ARTSY geographically, even, like, because we can still see that mainly even, from the collectors, we see still the US as biggest and then Europe. But of course, Asia is coming up and taking up also very strong. And it would be very interesting for you even, to see what the allocation is geographically.
Yeah, so for us, it relatively more or less breaks down to how the rest of the art market breaks down, where roughly half of our most active collectors are based in the US, and then the UK and Europe. And then as you look towards Asia, I think some of the figures around Chinese buying power are skewed by traditional Chinese works of art in mainland China that are being purchased that isn't necessarily what we deal in. But if you kind of take that segment out, we have a strong base of collectors in Hong Kong, in Korea, in Japan, et cetera. We've also engaged we have a WeChat and have tried to engage more with the kind of mainland Chinese market through that channel. But it's interesting with the scale that we have, and galleries in 100 countries, collectors in 190 countries, that at that scale you end up just kind of mirroring the market overall and responding then to what's happening in the broader market.
For me, it's always like when I actually opened the gallery 11 years ago, and I really thought, okay, open a gallery in Berlin, which is like, the city of artists, but not necessarily the city of collectors. And I thought even, when I opened the gallery there, what is the sense of doing that? Because like being then, we have the 2 galleries in Charlottenburg, and I said, first of all, I want to actually reach the Berliner, really like to be even, there, and to try to even really win them as a collector, even get them in the gallery. Because I think the business model cannot be even, to go always like on fairs internationally, but really having a strong presence even, in your home market. And actually then I see it, and I always thought even, Berlin is quite, like doesn't have so many collectors, but then I'm actually seeing my colleagues in New York, and they're also going frequently on fairs. And I'm thinking actually there's something wrong, because like, when you actually would have normally a business, you wouldn't go internationally always on fairs. It means it's actually very particular for the art market. And for us, it's like very important now to actually really see that what we do analog and what we do digitally. That means when we do something digitally, then also like to be then out, for example, in Korea, there was the Kiev where we are participating since 4 years, to really then also see at our booth, what you also then see digital. And of course, like ARTSY is helping us, but then besides ARTSY, we have of course our own website, and then Shopify, what we're using, because the problem for us with ARTSY is that we don't actually see the data, because we want to see the data. I know that you're now starting also give us like trends where we actually getting feedback, but that's for us like even in Instagram, we need feedback digitally what goes on. And this is now really that we're really trying to combine that, to really see how we can build up what people experience analog, that they even see and feel and touch the artwork, and then even how we bring this experience also digitally. And I think that's a very big challenge for us, because like before we actually did the normal photo, like the photograph came and he did a photo of the artwork and we actually uploaded it. But now we need to think about oh, this photo needs to be now differently, it needs to be now brighter, because there is an impact of the decision of someone is making even like the purchase digitally. They want to see the photo differently, but then we still have the artist. He wants to have it actually as the artwork is. Especially like when you do a book, that there is always the big difficulty like to have the same print as the artwork is. But now being digital, this is the challenge. And when we're getting the VR glasses now soon from Apple and others, we also need to think about how do we even capture that, and how do we bring that across digitally.
You mentioned something interesting around data, and I feel like I've been at ARTSY for 9 years now, and even when I started there, data was not something that galleries talked about very much. And in the past couple of years in particular, I think perhaps precipitated by COVID, people are really much more interested. You know, we talked to some of our galleries and they're like, well, I'm going to a fair in X or Y region. You know, I want to understand which of my artists are most popular there, because there are still some regional trends, even, you know, probably for similar reasons to what you were mentioning of different groups of collectors getting interested in a certain artist or that one. And as you mentioned, we've done, we're kind of in the early stages of pushing up a lot more of that data to the galleries, et cetera. So we recently released something where galleries can see more specific requests for works, not just, oh, I've got an inquiry on a specific work, but there's a collector looking for one of my artists that I haven't uploaded before, get a specific price range, whether they want a painting or print, et cetera. And I'm excited to see that ecosystem build out, because there's been such a dichotomy, and there still remains some differences in how people want to transact online. But in the art world's mind, there's been this, like, there's the offline art world, and then there's the real art world. And breaking down those barriers is super important as we move forward. Like, why do people go to events all the time and come to all these fairs? I think it's partially because galleries want to connect with collectors. You want to have that exchange. And a lot of how we're thinking about continuing to build out the ecosystem digitally is facilitating more of that interchange, giving galleries more information about what the collectors are looking for, and therefore getting collectors better works that they might not have otherwise had the opportunity to collect.
I think usually collector, you can purchase online, but you always think there is something more that is not online. So usually you will check what is online, and then you will go to the gallery and ask, oh, do you have other works that maybe you didn't share, and it's really like private. And usually people, is because you have like only one unique work most of the time, you always want the one that you love the most, and you think that maybe behind you have some, because it's happened a lot in the past that you only share online the one that you want to share to everyone, but the one you know, like you can keep it because that's the best one. Sometimes you only keep it for the top collectors, and people they need the information, they need the full information, and that's something you don't have if you don't look for it. I think it's quite opaque. Sometimes we can share like half of the work because we think we can sell it online, but the other we don't need it, so we keep it behind. And people, they don't really trust what they see. They need to make sure like someone in person tell them, oh yeah, this is everything we have from the artist, and this is the biggest selection you can have from an artist. But because it's really always a unique one, you're always scared to miss the right opportunity.
Yeah, I think that's always the challenge for galleries, right? Is to like keep your top collectors happy while also engaging new collectors. I don't remember the stat offhand, but we've such a smaller focus in the art world on generating new clients compared to like what you would typically want for a business outside the art world. But it is because there's limited supply, et cetera. But I'm curious, like when you're engaging online, I know you mentioned similarly to how you might approach a fair, that a lot of it is might not be available, but you might have something coming forward in the future. Freddy, I guess I'm curious for when you think about your online strategy as a gallery, are you looking for that, click to buy immediate purchase? Is it more about building long-term relationships? Or how do you navigate those two, I guess, differences between engaging your existing clients and generating new ones?
First of all, nowadays, even, it's like much easier to get in contact with collectors, because like whether it's like ARTSY or whether it's social media like Instagram, because we know the collectors. And before we were waiting, like sitting in a gallery and we're waiting even until they're coming in, or even, meeting them at the fair. Now everything is out there, and I think that's very like challenging, and I think I like this, because it was never even, so transparent as the world is now. And this is, of course, like for us as a gallery, but also for the collector. The collector has now the transparency. If he actually even, sees a young artist, he can see where he actually, or where she did an exhibition, where she's showing, which fair, what is the price range, and they really get information on that. And of course, maybe then even, you come even with auction results, and there are all the other market researches, what you can actually now get, on ranking. And they really have a good basis now to really get the awareness and going into the market. I think it was never better as it is now. And I think that's a big achievement now what we did. And the question is, how do we manage that? And as you asked me, even, you know, how do we do that really like analog and digital, and what's this really like? We're trying. It is not like always like, I believe still that it will not even, you know, like take you away for visiting an art fair or visiting the gallery, because you need to see the work. You need to really like be confronted with the work. Because this is like, and this is like, you know, actually you mentioned investment, and we're talking like about even, you know, the luxury industry. But I think even, you know, art has still a different meaning. You know, you can buy a Rolex, but if you buy an artwork, you're still even searching for a higher meaning, because the Rolex is not giving you the higher meaning. Maybe it gives you the investment and you can trade it, but this higher meaning, what even, you know, you get via an artwork, is like very unique. And when you see even now less and less people are going into churches, being religious, and they're looking for, you know, these higher meanings. When you see even what goes on in the world, you see even, you know, the climate change, or what happens, they are out there. And the higher meaning could also be even, you know, like being aware of climate and finding that then in an art world. And this is now for us also like, how do we bring that out? Because what actually we're showing analog is not necessarily what comes digital very good across. Because digitally, mostly even, you know, like, the more decorative the work gets, even digitally, the more clicks and the more likes you get, but it's not necessarily that is the best art or that is the best artwork. And this is like the challenge what we're faced with. That means when we see now artists, when we're talking with, and really like thinking, okay, we can hang this work in the gallery, but digitally it will not work. And then the question is, you know, how do we do that? And how we manage that? And I cannot give you now the one answer. It's a challenge where we're working really also as a team with. Like everybody needs to even come with, you know, proposals and see even, you know, how do we go ahead with it. Because I know digitally it will not go away. It will get more. And the question is even, you know, how do we prepare ourselves for that?
I think digital is really good at breaking down some of those barriers. You know, we've invested a lot in getting a lot of that information to collectors up front. Which museums has an artist shown at, which galleries, what other career achievements have they had, and that helps people move away in. But I really like what you said about the kind of higher meaning idea, because we saw, particularly during the pandemic, just this influx of new collectors. I mean, people who had never bought an artwork before, showing up on ARTSY, finding a work that they loved, and I had, you know, friends calling me being like, I never realized how bare my walls were. And those of us who love art and buy art regularly know how much better it is to live with art in your home and that kind of consistent inspiration. But yet, to your point on the luxury goods side, it's intimidating. You know, I think galleries are getting better day by day at engaging clients, but you still see people sitting at the booth or in the gallery kind of on their phone, and it's intimidating to go up and talk to somebody and kind of, you don't know if they're gonna be nice or not, whatever. Online is great at helping people get past that first barrier of shyness or just, you know, whatever hesitancy to engage. But there are other impacts, and I think we have to always find how to now merge the two ecosystems. One last question, I guess, before we, you know, give 5 minutes maybe for some audience questions. You know, we touched on the macroeconomic situation, how things are going for galleries. You know, I think my conversations with galleries over the past week, the responses and experiences are a little bit all over the place. But I'm curious, kind of as you think about, you know, managing both of your galleries through a more difficult market, even if it's just because it's slower, how you've thought about that, or how maybe you're engaging with collectors differently, or responses that you're getting back from collectors that are different now compared to, you know, 6, 12 months ago. Sylviane, maybe you want to start.
I think we have to look in the future now and think about what we need to change and improve in the art market. It's true, it's been years and years, like we've been doing the same thing, and now with the online, it's much more complicated to to divide the collector which are really interested or which are just clicking on inquiries to check, what is going on. It's true, but the idea here is this year we can feel like collectors, they take much more time. It's true, like we can see on the inside, to decide which work they want to buy. And if they don't know the artist, they will not buy it. But if they really know it, of course, it's just the way we collect art needs to be different, and the gallery needs to educate the collector in this way, give access to more people about like how do you purchase art, because it's something that's much more important than buying a luxury a Rolex or whatever. It's something that you need to really, it's personal, you have to love it, but in the same time so many people told me they never bought art because they don't feel like going inside a gallery. It's a way people feel like, oh, I'm not eligible to inquire art because I don't know if I'm part of it. And I feel like people need to, the galleries has to educate people to be more open about it, and open maybe to more digital and different way of also more transparency.
Yeah, you walk into buy a nice handbag or watch, and you're probably going to get greeted with a glass of champagne and a really smiley salesperson. You walk into a gallery, sometimes it's deafeningly quiet. But I like what you said about galleries and having to take more of that responsibility on themselves to even open up more. And I feel like sometimes in the down markets, people are like, well, it's just not easy anymore. Well, like, why is it fun if it's easy? We have to always be out there reaching out and making this industry that we love more accessible. But Freddy, I'm curious for your response.
Yes, we definitely also see the last, even, since we have the Ukrainian war, we actually see a slowdown also, and we see that internationally, even, like also for the economic climate. And it's getting more difficult because, I have people, they have a corporate collection and they're saying, actually, we don't know even, what the energy bill will be. And I don't have this budget any longer, what I actually spend with you, 100,000 a year. I can't do that any longer. And that is definitely where we actually be faced with. And we need to find a solution for that. That means, it's not only even, that we're going out to different countries, to different fairs, because that we also can then experience that on a fair. When I'm here now in Paris, I can everybody even, encourage to even really like buy art, and especially young art, because there are young artists there. They are doing their life. They really like need to do their living from when they're buying it, and the gallery is then representing it, because there is this trustful relationship. And because then it's not only even an investment, because you are even, part of this dynamic, because you're really doing also something. That means, just think about when you're going now here on a fair and you're buying a work, then even the artist can live, whether it's even Afghanistan or whether it's in Iran or even anywhere else in Asia, then they can even do their living. And not only them, but also the family. That means that's also doing something good. And I can only even encourage that. Just actually, of course, investment is important, a dollar of market research is important, but then I'm always actually saying, what is an investment? First of all, you need to have a laugh, and you need to like this work, and you need to be even, in correspondence with the work. And then secondly, it's like, what does the artist actually decide in 5 or 10 years not any longer being an artist? What is then with your investment? And it's still even, any art piece is mostly like, when it's not a multiple, it's a unique piece. And this is also how we should treat it. And I know even, the auction houses, they are going now and they're combining Rolex and whatever, the trainers, whatever you get. And I think we still should even, be aware of that, and should keep that really like separate and exclusively. And that's actually like where I'm standing for.
I love it. Bringing it back to the artist is so important. You always have to remember, like, for these emerging artists, how many $10,000 paintings or $5,000 paintings that you get 50% of do you actually have to sell just to support yourself, never mind a family or whatnot. So it's a great point. I think we have time for 1 or 2 questions for the audience, if there are any out there. There's a microphone.
I'm so sorry. Any questions? Please.
Freddy, you mentioned the dichotomy between home base and international fairs and so on. How does it play out for your gallery in Berlin, which has been long established? How in terms of the market share, the gallery itself in Berlin and fairs and so on, or international collectors?
Actually, they had a share of probably 60% from international business, because we went and we did a lot of fairs, and we now even, you know, put that down to mostly 40%. Digitally, we see maybe 10% now, even, you know, including ARTSY. And the remaining is even, you know, Berlin, our home base, or even Berlin plus Germany. These are more or less the numbers. That means even, you know, like, if we're now not going any longer internationally, because also the big challenge is like everything got more expensive. Like also the fairs, they increased of 20–25% the participation fee, but also the transport got more expensive. But it's not only even, you know, like the money that we're paying more, it's also like we need to be aware of the climate. You know, when we actually now even flying to Miami, it will be carbon emission. Even, you know, like also when we're sending our box to Miami, that will be even, you know, it will be against the climate. And I'm always actually saying when we're starting, or the fair even starts, to charge us for the climate, we're anyway out, because that is not what we can pay any longer. And this is at the moment like the big component which is not priced for, but we need to think about it. When we do our calculation, you know, like there is the Gallery Climate Coalition, and you also get on their page. And we're an active member, and you actually really see what the carbon emission is, what you're using, and that really starts in packaging, in sending, in flying. We need to anyway think differently, and that will be the big challenge for us now. And therefore I'm saying I need to actually do that internationally, like going and doing, you know, like international fairs. We need to anyway tackle that. I hope that was an answer.
I agree about the fact that we do a lot of international fairs, and it costs a lot, and also for the planet and everything. And I think this year the main idea of many galleries was to consider more local fairs, where you can be closer to your collectors, you can be it's more significant for your artists also to represent in your local place. When we have like a space in France, we can represent French artists to Europe fairs, because we want to promote them also locally. In the past, we used to think, oh, because it's a Japanese artist, we should show them in the States because he never showed there, and it's a great opportunity to them. But the idea is also like you have to represent your artist and all the programming of your gallery locally to promote them also to other people that you never thought about it. But I think it's also important to have this space. Yeah, totally.
It's fascinating. It's more almost like getting more regional rather than this kind of total globalization.
This is really like absolutely.
Yeah.
It's always been like, okay, let's bring an American artist to Asia because he never showed there. It's always been like this, but now more and more we think about, oh, why don't we show him also locally? It's a big challenge also, especially for the artist to show in his own country, because he already knows the market and all the artists also, but it's also a very good opportunity for him.
Well, I think we are at time. Thank you both so much for joining me today. This was a really lovely discussion, and thanks as well to Asia Now for having us.
Thank you very much, and thank you here, the audience. Thank you.